Hi, this is Chris Hale. I'm the CEO of GI Jobs, and I am super pleased to welcome you to our Success After Service series, our influencer series. That precedes our virtual job fairs that we hold monthly. Y'all are getting ready to jump into our virtual job fairs and get after your career transition out of the military. And we like to bring on really inspiring people here to encourage you to take a very active role in that job fair. Get out there and talk to people, and anything is possible kind of a thing. So we are super, super pleased to have a very, very special guest with us here this morning. Retired Navy Chief Grant Khanbalinov. And I think I'm just going to go with Grant K from now on, because I'm just not very good at.
That's fine.
Is that all right? But
Yeah, that's fine.
it's very good to have you join us here today, and let's just jump into it. So, tell us about, I think you're very well known these days for your following on TikTok. So why don't we start there with the work that you're doing there and how that all started?
Yeah, thanks for having me on here. That was a big hype up. I hope I could live up to it. It started one of my positions that I was in the Navy. I was actually the national social media trainer. That was my second to last position. Sounds totally made up, and which it was, because that position was not there before. I just kind of said, you know what? I think let's call it the national social media trainer. And I kind of just made it. And my job was to study all the social media platforms, train our sailors primarily on recruiting duty, how to use them, how to find applicants, really just train them like recruiters use social media in the civilian world. And while I was at that command, at Navy Recruiting Command, TikTok came out, and it was my job to go in there, see how we could implement it into recruiting duty. It obviously didn't work out, just for security issues and reasons like that, and it's kind of hard to target people on there. Um, but I started using it personally, and from there just started to take off.
Yeah, that's really cool. So and you were doing this back in the day when it was sort of, the military probably wasn't viewing social media. They were still trying to figure out what role they wanted to play in social media, right? And probably a balance between security, but also knowing that they could influence young people, especially in a recruiting capacity. Tell me about the policy directives from, big Navy versus the tip of the tip of the spear, social media stuff that was bound to happen, that balance.
To me, it was almost a shock. It started at Navy Recruiting Station Tom's River, where I was recruiting, and then moved up to LPO. And when recruiting command came down, they're like, "This is amazing what you guys are doing. Like, how are you so innovative?" I was like, "This is really nothing new, but sure, like let's roll with it and get you guys going." So there was very little policy. There was general guidelines, like no posting PII, and whatever you say on social media can be held against you. So there were guidelines, but there were no guardrails, or there was really nothing guiding our sailors and our recruiters to show them exactly what to do on social media.
Hmm. Tell us about what you're doing now. Well, let's back up a little bit, actually. So where are you originally from, and what caused you, what prompted you to want to join the Navy?
Sure. So originally, I'm from Kazakhstan, which was the Soviet Union when we left. My family immigrated to the United States strictly for the blue jeans. It was very difficult to find in Russia. Um, no, so we moved here in 1993. I grew up in Staten Island, and when I was 17 years old, I was like, you know what? I don't even know how to do my own laundry. I don't want to go to college. I don't want to go to community college, which was just like the 13th grade. And I took my mom and I said, I'm gonna join whatever branch has their door open. And all of them had their doors locked. And as we were
Hmm.
leaving, my mom's like, "That's a sign. You're not joining. That you're not going to war. There was no war going on." She was like, "You're not leaving." The Navy recruiters opened up their door, and I was like, "All right, let's go. There's the sign."
Very nice. And so from Staten Island, probably few people, there's a Navy Lodge on Staten Island, right? There's an old,
Yeah.
I think it used to be an old military base, and now I think it's part of the Department of the Interior.
Hmm.
Um, right there near the Verrazano Narrows Bridge. I've actually stayed at that Navy Lodge. Pretty neat place.
Yeah. I want to say it's Fort Wadsworth.
That's
Is it
right.
Fort Wadsworth or Fort Hamilton? One of those.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And yeah, most people were like, what the heck is that? But it's actually a
Mhm.
pretty cool place to stay. You take the Staten Island ferry into the city and you're right there. It's pretty cool. Um, so good. So you joined the Navy and you joined the Navy. What was your rate? What was your job when in your first several years?
So I joined as an electrician. I didn't even know what a screwdriver looked like. They're just like, hey, you're not a citizen of the United States. You don't have a driver's license. Here's three jobs: electrician, corpsman, and GSE. I knew nothing about electricity. I did not want to be a corpsman. So I was like, all right, well, I didn't know anything about electricity and mechanics. So I was like, I might as well pick one that I could learn. So I chose electrician. From there, I did my school. I reported to my first ship, which was FFG 58 out of Mayport, Florida, Salem B. Roberts. I did a few years on there. Left, did a small tour with a CNO, kind of like priority billet, where I got to go out and translate and do a bunch of cool things like that. Reported to LHA 5, which was the USS Peleliu. From there, went to NRD Philadelphia, Navy Recruiting Command, and then my final billet in the Navy was in DC at the Pentagon with Chinfo.
Nice, nice. And did you go down, were you one of the recruiters of the year when they had that program going on?
I tried. I got very close. I got runner up a few times, but in the words of Ricky Bobby, if you're not first or last, um, I just kept getting runner up over and over again. But I did cross rate to career counselor
Mm,
after my first recruiting tour, so I kind of left a electrician rate.
yeah. And I think when I was in the Navy, they were a CRF, Career Recruiting
Hmm.
Force. So, yeah, same thing. Good stuff.
Yep.
Um, cool. So then when you transitioned out of the Navy, which I think was a year or two ago,
Yeah.
2021, I believe. Yeah. Um, tell us about, tell us about your transition, and where you landed and ultimately what you're doing now.
Yeah. So my transition was tough. So I got sick while I was in the military. I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease, and the doctors immediately told me like, "Hey, what's on policy means that you have to have a med board. You're non-deployable, and with the current SecDef's memo, everyone needs to be deployable, and you're most likely going to get discharged." And then everything went quiet.
Mm,
No med board was initiated. Everything stayed quiet. I was like, "Okay, I'm safe. I'm coming up to 13 years. I just re-enlisted. I'm going to make it to retirement." And I went in for my PHA, and they're like, "Hey, do you have anything wrong with you?" And I said, "Yes, I have Crohn's disease." They triggered the med board right there on the spot.
oh my.
Yeah, so med board kicked off. I started going to all of my appointments. This was around October of 2021. By February of 2020, sorry, this was October of 2020. By February of 2021, I already had the decision that I was found unfit and that I was going to be getting out within the next few months, which, you never really expect to be out of the Navy within 6 months.
Yeah.
Um, and once that happened, I really started to crank down on my college degree. I already had my bachelor's, but I started doubling and tripling classes to finish up my master's while I was on active duty. So I finished that up, and my first job out of the military was working at an advertising agency. It
Hmm,
was with VML Y&R, where I ran social media for Mazda North America. And that was just probably not the best job for me as soon as I got out, because you have that military mindset. You have those values that were just kind of like, you know, that you grew up with for 13 years, and then all of a sudden you're running social for a major auto manufacturer for
yeah.
all of North America. And it was a big transition, and I had to talk to HR a few times because there are some things that you can't say during meetings that you could say in the military. So it was a big learning process, and that job just didn't work out. I just couldn't find my place there, and I left, and I was unemployed for 2 months.
So first, let me ask
Ama-
you, how do you land a job like that? I mean, that's just, I mean, right out of the Navy. I mean, obviously what you were doing in the Navy was related to that, but
mhm.
um, I'm, I'm a little, I'm just a little surprised that you were able to translate it that quickly into a high level ad agency kind of a job like that. Like, how did you do that?
Biggest thing is network, make connections, make friends, send emails out. When I was working with the Navy, I worked with that agency very closely. And we worked out of the Memphis office because that's the agency that the Navy used for advertising. And then when I was getting out, I kind of just like reached out to those connections and said, "Hey, I'm
Nice.
getting out. Is there anything that's out there?" And they said, "Hey, the Seattle office has this position open. We would love to refer you." So they gave me a referral, and then from there, they were pretty much hands off. And I just went through the interview process and wrote up plans for them, and was lucky enough to get the job.
Yeah. So yeah, no, so yeah, back to your story. So you left there.
Yeah,
Um,
I left there. I was unemployed for 2 months, and I will say that if you're a transitioning service member or a veteran, you can afford yourself to be unemployed for even if it's 2 weeks or 3 weeks. That's one of the biggest things I recommend.
mm,
Take a little break. Doesn't have to be long. Doesn't have to be 2 months because I'm not gonna lie, it started to get terrifying. But take a little break, just decompress. You just went through like this massive transition, so you need that kind of like mental
mm.
break. But I did end up finding a job at a nonprofit called the National Minority Quality Forum, and that's what I ran social media for them for a little over a year, and then I was able to find myself at Amazon.
Nice. And so, and you're at Amazon now. What are you doing for Amazon? And when did you join them?
So I'm coming up to a year on Amazon, which in Amazon's world, that doesn't matter because every day is day one at Amazon.
Right.
I compare it to recruiting to where it's 36 1 month tours in recruiting. Every day is day one at Amazon. You're always doing something new. I started doing social media for Amazon Care, which was part of their healthcare efforts. Then I moved to social media for Amazon Clinic, and now I am a senior marketing manager for Amazon Clinic and helping them with different healthcare efforts.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's cool stuff. I have to ask, Sean Kelly, former Amazon senior guy, HR side, is a he's also a huge proponent of the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation. Do you know Sean? Do you know of that name at all?
No, no, which is we have a lot of similarities there, but no, I actually haven't heard of them.
Yeah, I'll have to introduce you guys. You need to know him. He's a really great guy and a huge veteran advocate. So yeah. No, good stuff. So culturally, tell me about the mindset, the culture differences. What we hear from veterans all the time is, it's replacing that camaraderie, that esprit de corps that we had in the military. It's the culture is so different on the outside as it is when we're institutionalized on the inside, right? And so many veterans I talk to really long for going back into that world, culturally. Obviously, military service has its challenges, and everybody gets out at some point. But
Mhm.
that feeling of brotherhood and sisterhood is just really hard to replace. Are those? Tell us about you and your journey path out of the military from an emotional perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that it is extremely different. Unless you find yourself working at a place that is very, very veteran heavy, which Amazon is. It has an amazing veteran community, and affinity group, but nothing will ever compare to the brothers and sisters that you had in the military. And I've spoken about this on LinkedIn and I've spoken about it on Instagram. And someone commented on one of my posts that said, "I miss the clowns, but not the circus." And I was like, that is probably the most accurate thing that anyone could have ever said. Um, it's difficult, and the best way that I would tell people to deal with it is still talk to your fellow, shipmates, your fellow soldiers, your battle buddies, whoever. Reach out to them and continue to chat with them and have FaceTime calls and meet up with them when you can, because not only will they appreciate it and to learn everything that you have now learned as a civilian, but it'll also help you kind of like get back into it and realize some of the things that you don't miss and realize some of the things that you do. And I'll just say, kind of like mentally and with mental health, again, I just posted about this recently, is that mental health is very difficult in the military and it's very tough. In the civilian world, it gets better, but now you're facing new challenges. And let's say you were nervous or you didn't want to go seek help while you're in the military for whatever reason it was. The civilian time, that's the time to rebuild and time to kind of like go out there and talk to a provider and, just really start to, heal yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. No, good advice, man. So that leads us to your TikTok platform. You've got, holy cow, an amazing following, 3 million plus followers
Mhm.
on TikTok. That's unbelievable. And your platform is mental health and veteran advocacy kinds of issues, right? Um,
Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
tell us about your platform there.
Yeah, so it's a little bit of everything. We started to see a lot of success and a lot of people were invested into our family. So a lot of the content that we were making was very family friendly content. It was our kids, it was, my wife
Mm.
and I, and we would also bring up mental health and veteran issues both on Instagram and on TikTok. And then last year something just kind of like came to me and I was like, "W- why, like, kids shouldn't be on social media." It was like I've heard of people having like epiphanies and like these eye-opening moments. Never thought it was real. And then one night while I was playing Call of Duty, I was like, "What am I doing? Why am I putting out my kids on social media and making videos of them and taking away from their like regular kid developing lives?"
Yeah.
So we totally stopped immediately overnight putting any videos of our children on social media and just strictly transitioned it to my wife and I. And doing so through TikTok, I was able to connect and talk about resources about mental health and talk about things that veterans and active duty service members have available to them. And prior to that, we led a very heavy kind of like mental health and suicide awareness slash prevention program strictly on social media.
Wow, that is awesome, man. Changing lives. I mean, the numbers, we all see the numbers, 22 a day, and yeah, you're doing your part to remedy that, man. Congrats and thank you for all the things that you do there. Um,
Yeah, thank you.
what do you how do you get to 3 million followers? I mean, that's more than the population of a lot of countries. So, like, seriously, how do you, like, what's the secret to your success there in your message?
uh, yeah, I would just consistency is a big one. Just be consistent, find something that can align to other people, find your niche or your niche or however someone says it. I hear it differently all the time. And just, go from there and don't worry about, this is going to sound very weird with me saying, but don't worry about the followers. Don't worry about the likes and the comments and how many shares you get. Once you start worrying about that, it takes the fun out of it.
Mm.
Just do it for you and do it for, do what makes you happy. And then whatever comes from there is, you kind of take.
Yeah, well, thank you for using the influencer, network and the platform and the followership that you've got for such good causes. It's really great. Oftentimes it's not that. And it's great to see people doing, using it for those causes. So it's mostly I can't have to ask you, there's a lot of stuff these days around TikTok and,
Mm.
Chinese influence and, government banning it from employee devices and things like that. What are your thoughts on all of that stuff?
Um, so my thoughts on TikTok is it is very toxic. Um, to me, TikTok is honestly, once you start scrolling, once you go down the rabbit hole, we, us as consumers, we have no control of what we see on that platform. and what we see is something completely different than what China sees, and what our kids see on TikTok is completely different from what users overseas, you know, see. I don't want to say it too much, but I had to. So I don't know. I think that the government is moving in the right step by banning it off of some phones. And, I think that there has to be limits on some things that our children see and some things that our service members have access to, because it is a tool. Even though like we have all these followers on there, it is a tool that other governments and other countries can
Hmm.
use to, get information on you.
And you guys are, that's fascinating. So, I mean, your idea, you've also got a following on Instagram and other. So what is your, what are your sort of your numbers there, and where's your emphasis these days? Is it more on some of the other platforms, or still a lot of TikTok?
So I kind of split it up on TikTok. I try to keep it sometimes light. I do make videos about mental health and veterans and things of that nature on there. A lot of it I do on Instagram and Facebook. I have two accounts. Not the largest. On one I have a little over 10,000, and on the other a little over 28,000. And that's where I talk a lot to service members and a lot to veterans, for a few reasons. Just because, one, that's something that they could access while they're deployed. So let's say they're in the middle of the ocean, they, at least I don't think they could watch TikTok, just because like of bandwidth issues and stuff. But they can most of the time get on Instagram and get on Facebook and see some of the things that I post. Sorry if you could hear my dog downstairs.
Hey, it's
Um,
2023. That's the norm. No, don't worry about it.
yeah. But yeah, so mostly for veterans and service members, I focus on Instagram and Facebook, and TikTok, I try to keep it a little bit lighter.
Yeah. Well, good. Give us some, tell us how folks can follow you if they're not already. Give us some of the information it put out.
Yeah, so I mean, you can follow myself on Instagram. My Instagram handle is at NCCKHAN. It was my work Instagram, and after they verified me, I can no longer change my name. So now I have my work title just following me around, and I have to explain.
Say that one more time in case somebody missed it.
Sure. So it's N like November, CCKHAN like November.
Got it.
Yeah, that's on Instagram. And on Facebook, it's just my first and last name. I try to keep all of my DMs open. My phone number is all over the internet. It's all over Reddit. I have people texting me and calling me that I don't even know who they are, but I'll talk to them and I'll kind of guide them through, no matter if they just have transition questions or if they're having some sort of mental health emergency.
Yeah. Well, thank you for taking our call, and thank you for joining us here today. And what a cool journey. What an amazing following you've got, and really appreciate you sharing that with us here today. And congratulations on your transition. It sounds like you're off to a great start, some great experience, and hopefully a very long and fruitful career in the private sector. And now with Amazon, great company. So congratulations on all that. Thank you so much for joining us, Grant.
Absolutely, thank you. And I just wanted to say that like I'm always very hesitant about like veteran groups, and I'm very open about it on LinkedIn. But GI Jobs is one of those that when you guys reached out, I was like, okay, I will talk to them. A lot of others, I'm like, they're just trying to exploit service members. But GI Jobs, I know personally that it's you guys are actually here to help.
Yeah, we've been doing it a long time, man. 21 years, I think, at this point, and we've been advocates for civilian employment, for veterans, on employment, education, and entrepreneurship issues for a really, really long time. So super proud of our team and the work that we do, and I appreciate you recognizing that, no doubt. But yeah, great to have you. Thank you so much for joining, and for everybody who is attending the job fair today. Thank you for coming, and we certainly encourage you to get out, shake a lot of hands, kiss a lot of babies, talk to a lot of people, learn a lot of stuff. Take a few weeks, take Grant's advice, take a few weeks of unemployment and leave, and just decompress and unwind and get ready for that next journey path. There will be challenges that lie ahead, no doubt. But there will be a lot of opportunity, and look at it as the next phase in your life. You're really going to enjoy it. Thank you for joining us today. Thanks again, Grant. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.